I don't even understand the point of this whole choice thing, this freedom that God has graced us with. Why would God need our so-called freedom if in the end he's only satisfied with strictly defined choices? He could have just made me in a way he would have liked me.
Companies don't just want to make some money, companies want to make all of the money. It's one of this show's most endearing, it's one of this show's most enduring phrases, and it's really what lies at the heart of every single shitty business decision that plagues this industry. Especially at the moment, the mass layoffs and horrible studio closures that are riddling the place, and not just games, but the entire tech sector as well. So join me as we look at Microsoft's response to all of this, which is, well, really shit. Studio closures. They occur when a game studio is failing. They occur when a game studio is succeeding. Like with the mass layoffs game publishers routinely indulge in, publishers shutting down studios are motivated far less by the studio's performance and infinitely more by a perpetual drive to cut costs and please shareholders, all in the name of perpetuating the ridiculous myth that a company can get richer and bigger literally forever. The myth of perpetual growth. Like I have reminded viewers for a while now, publishers axe people's jobs and shut down developers regardless of success, and sometimes because of it. Since the better a publisher does, the more pressure there is to cut those costs so it looks like they're making more money. It's an unsustainable system, which is why the industry is such a tumultuous and unstable fucking mess all the time. And if you're one of the 5 people still watching this shit, you'll know that already. So, why are we talking about it this time? Well, we've got some absolute piss drivel excuses from a Microsoft executive to laugh at. Ha 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 ha. Microsoft has been among the very worst, in fact it may very well be the worst instigator of studio shutdowns and mass layoffs, responsible for thousands of ruined lives in the name of pleasing a handful of already incredibly wealthy investors. All these harmful, maliciously callous cost-cutting methods at a time when the company is spending obscene, offensive amounts of cash to buy other companies in its attempt to create a de facto monopoly in the game industry. Most disgustingly, those huge purchases of Bethesda and Activision have been a direct cause of layoffs and closures, with Microsoft most recently treating itself to the shuttering of Bethesda's subsidiaries, Arcane Austin, AlphaDog Games, and perhaps most shocking of all, Tango Gameworks. So what does Xbox leader Sarah Bond have to say for her company's habit of consuming other companies and upending thousands of careers in the process and continuing engaging in mass layoffs rather than cutting the executive class's extreme salaries and bonuses, or at the very least maybe not spending literal billions to buy shiny new toys? Well, it turns out she has very little of worth to say at all, as if to unintentionally suggest that executives truly have no compelling arguments for their despicable behaviour and completely fail to justify it when they try and contrive some. The last year or so in video games, largely the industry's been flat, whimpered Bond in an interview that has since blown up for how pathetic it is. And even in 2023, we saw just some tremendous releases, tremendously groundbreaking games, but still, the growth didn't follow all of that. There it is. That word. Growth. I love that. Within a couple of sentences, Bond essentially backs up everything I've said about corporate motivations for years. Perpetual growth, at any cost. So long as the cost isn't felt by anyone but the employees on the ground level, it's not enough to make money, it's not enough to be successful. You have to keep growing, no matter how big and powerful you already are. The slightest drop and the investors panic and pull out. It's fucking nonsense. It's funny though, this interview with Bond has been criticised for being weak, but if anything it's making an incredibly strong case. It just so happens to be making my case. Anyway, Sorry, let's let Bond continue talking about the growth not being there. A lot of that's related to our need to bring new players in and make gaming more accessible, but all of that has been happening at the same time that the cost associated with making these beautiful AAA blockbuster games is going up, and the time it takes to make them is going up. Oh, and there that is. One of the all-time classic fucking excuses squirted out by people so rich they could fund an entire game's development and still be rich. Games are just too expensive to make. Oh, pity the poor multi-billion-dollar business that can always find money to give management million-dollar bonuses just for sitting on their fucking asses. Pity the poor companies boasting of record revenue and raking in billions off the back of predatory in-game economies. And pity the poor companies to whom the expense of making games is happening at them. It's not a decision they're making. They're completely powerless. They're just the ones with complete and total fucking power. Once again, a massive corporation pleads poverty and tries to claim it can't afford to do the thing it's in the literal business of doing. I've heard it too many times. I'd heard it too many times in 2014, let alone 2024. The same tired, overplayed excuses applied to every shitty business decision, as companies who make and sell games have spent over a decade trying to tell us they can't afford to make and sell games, while boasting to their shareholders about how much money they're pulling in by making and selling games. The fact Bond is trotting out by far the laziest and most worn-out argument really only says one thing. Microsoft thinks you're a gullible fucking moron who can't remember the last dozen things they've used this argument for. At some point, games have to make money, as Naughty Dog once famously said while enjoying a lucrative sponsorship deal between Uncharted and Subway. Fucking disingenuous cunt. When asked about those recent developer shutdowns, the Xbox president was no less offensive than she's already been. It's always extraordinarily hard when you have to make decisions like that, she lied. When we looked at those fundamental industry trends, we feel a deep responsibility to ensure that the games we make, the devices we build, the services that we offer are there through moments. Even when the industry isn't growing, when you're through a time of transition. The news we announced earlier in the week is an outcome of that, in our commitment to make sure that the business is healthy for the long term. What? No, seriously, what the fuck was that? State of your corporate spiel, mate. That was just words, just a bunch of buzzwords thrown together with waffling, obfuscating vagary. Borderline salad, even. Like, this was the bit I was most looking forward to tearing apart, the excuse for the closures, but what? There's nothing to tear apart, she fucking said nothing! But anyway, she continues talking bollocks with all the commitment of a terminal bellend. The news we announced earlier in the week is an outcome of that, in our commitment to make sure— oh no, I've already done that bit. Fuck off. Tango Gameworks last year saw massive critical acclaim and enjoyed commercial success with Hi-Fi Rush, a game many would put forth as one of the best made in years. But as we've already seen, success doesn't count for much in an industry designed only to reward those who are already wealthy. Tango's closure shocked the gaming community, but sadly I can't say I was surprised. Disgusted, yes, but I'm not surprised by any studio's closure, no matter if they've just launched a complete stinker or released one of the most popular games of the year. Does Sarah Bond have any thoughts on that? No, hang on, scratch that. Does Sarah Bond have fucking useful thoughts on that? You already know the answer. You know, one of the things I really love about the games industry is that it's a creative art form, and it means that the situation and what success is for each game and studio is also really unique, said the executive, literally trying to relitigate the definition of success. There's no one-size-fits-all to it for us, and so we look at each studio, each game team, and we look at a whole variety of factors when we're faced with sort of making decisions and trade-offs like that. But it all comes back to our long-term commitment to the games we create, the devices we build, the services, and ensuring that we're setting ourselves up to be able to deliver on the blah. You'll notice she talked a lot of shit about all the hard decisions and all the different criteria, but didn't actually explain any of it. Didn't explain what the criteria was for Tango's shutdown. What did success mean for Hi-Fi Rush? What did Hi-Fi Rush have to do in order to save Tango Gameworks? Sarah Bond, like a fucking shithead, once again said nothing. But in doing so, said a damn lot. What she said, what she's admitted to, is what I've been fucking saying for ages. Success don't matter. It won't save you. If you release a failed game, you'll be shut down. If you release a successful game, you'll be shut down. Because once you've made the claim that success is a vaguely defined idea that means different unique things depending on whatever it is the publisher feels like doing at the time, you've told your subsidiaries, your employees, one thing: you are damned. Damned if you win, damned if you lose. Damned if you do and you don't. Damned the second you signed the bottom line and sold your studio to a merciless, callous corporation that defines success not by success, but by whatever saves them the most money in the short term. Fuck what Bond said about long-term thinking. Corporations aren't built for that. They're built for whatever gets them lurching to the next financial quarter with the illusion that it's making all the money in the world and still somehow finding change behind the couch cushions. Shit rolls downhill, and the moment you go from indie studio to corporate subsidiary, you've placed yourself at the foot of Mount Rectum with your mouth wide open. Let's be completely honest, because fuck knows the destruction of Hi-Fi Rush's developer makes it plain as day. The objective for these publishers is not to make a great game. It's never been about making a great game. It's about making a strong brand. A brand that sells no matter how bad its games get. A brand that trades on the pedigree of the logos being used rather than the quality of the game. Here's an image of the Bethesda logo next to Starfield for absolutely no reason. Talent is not an asset in the AAA space. Only the products that talent creates is considered an asset. And once a publisher has that product, that brand, actual talent is surplus to requirements. It is, in fact, an unwanted expense that in the mind of the profit-poisoned penis should be cut. This attitude is reflected in the disgusting lust for AI-generated content we're seeing. In fact, there is perhaps no greater admission of the attitude. AI represents the corporate wet dream of cutting creators completely out of the act of creation using an algorithm that is, insultingly, a plagiaristic reconstitution of things those creators already made. Hell, to executives, the plagiarism is a real bonus, because reconstituting media is what media's all about these days. Repackaging the same shit, the same brand, over and over, making it mean a little less each time, until you're in a world where a show about mass murder and rape is crossing over with Bugs fucking Bunny, and we're so numb to branded media without content or context that apparently I'm still the only bitch questioning how fucked up that is. Creators are being sidelined, buried, and forgotten. Everything in this Smash Brothers ripoff was once attributed to human creators, but it's now little more than intellectual property, known primarily for what owns it rather than who made it. Property of Warner Brothers. You might not have noticed it, but you're brain dead. At some point, the companies owning the art started getting more credit than the artists, and the AI dream has companies creaming their jeans over the idea that credit can go to them in totality. And I wonder what they will start cutting to save money once they've cut out all the people who made it for them. Do you think they'll ever consider paying their execs a little less?